So when we have a new image, oftentimes the image is very low quality. And if we want to know what print size is, we simply go up here to Image, Size, Screen Resolution, which we see here is 72 dpi. But if we change that to Print Resolution, which is 300, we then notice our image size is actually only 1.3 inches by 0.93 inches. When we wanted to try to enlarge that, we're going to run into issues. So, and likely get JPEG artifacts. So let's see, what can we do to enlarge this image? So Adobe has come out with some great little tools called Nero filters. Nero filters are a form of AI, and in this case, generative AI. So if we look at this image, and there's two different ways to do this, we'll go through both. The first one is simply to go here to Nero filters, and based on the quality of the image and what it needs is going to determine my decision, but I would encourage you just to play around and see what works best. There's all kinds of tools in here. Some of these you are going to, like photo restoration, which we're going to use first, you are going to have to download. So if I pick just simply photo restoration, and we have adjustments and stuff like this that we can change as well, depending upon what the image looks like. Again, it's a matter of playing around to see. And just like in the tutorial, we can see that we have a pretty sharp, good sized image. So if I zoom in on this a little, you can see it cleaned it up pretty well. Now, in this case, I'm going to use another AI tool to enlarge this image. I am going to go back in here to Filter, Nero Filters, and this time I'm going to use a tool called Super Zoom. What this tries to do is replicate the pixels in the image so that as it's replicating and we're enlarging the image, we don't lose all of the resolution and get all of the artifacts. So in this case, we don't really have JPEG artifacts because of the photo restoration. We don't really need to enhance the face or anything like that. So we can simply go in here and click how many times larger we would like it. In this case, I've picked 7 times. I forgot to mention, always have it go to a new image. We do not want to try to overwrite the old image. So when it does that, it has a mask underneath of here that you can't really see. So in this case, I would simply always flatten the image before we do anything else to it. All right, so that's method 1. Method 2, which sometimes is necessary, we'll go back to open. We know what our image size is. We can go directly into our Nero filters, and we can go into Super Zoom, but this time we're going to need to make some additional changes. So we want to remove the JPEG artifacts. We want to give it a tiny bit of noise reduction, a tiny sharpen, and enhance face details. And then we are going to do the same thing. And let's see what our results look like. All right. So let's kind of do these side by side and see which one came out better. See, this one's kind of a little fuzzy. This one is much sharper, but it kind of has maybe a little bit too much contrast. We can go in and adjust that. But all in all, this is the superior image compared to just normal super zoom. But sometimes super zoom works just fine. All right. As I said before, we always want to flatten. our image. So we're not going to use this one because it just does not look great, although we could do things to repair that if our photo restore does not work. So I'm going to close it. And now let's see what image size I have. It's now 9 inches by 6.5 inches, which is fine for normal enlargement. All right, so now let's isolate just the head since we're going to be making a big head. So I can go up under here. You can hit it here, but pick it, select subject here, but I prefer to do it up here. Sometimes the select subject does not always work as well. It's isolated it out pretty well. Now to remove the rest of the background. And there's always multiple ways to do things in Photoshop, but I prefer this because it gives me more control. I'm going to go into select and mask, and that immediately makes all of the background invisible. And I'll show you why I like to do that. Now we want to make sure we change our Outlook selection to new layer with layer mask. And I'll show you why. All right, so now we have our base image down here, and now we have our new image with everything invisible except the selected subject. If you're not familiar with mask in Photoshop, there's a real easy way to remember. Black conceals, white reveals. So anything that's black, we're not seeing. Anything that's white, we are. So why is that important? And that's because if there's some subjects are difficult to isolate and we may need to manually remove different things, and how we can do that is just simply with a paintbrush. And let me give you a demo of the black reveals, white reveals. So I have a black paintbrush, and if I simply went into here and paint it over with a black paintbrush, now that all disappears. Now, obviously, we don't want to do that, but it gives us, so if we have something over here that we want to remove, we could turn around and very fine with the paintbrush, remove it if necessary. All right, next we're going to flatten the image again. And now we have just the subject picked. So now we are trying to make a big head, so we don't need the rest of the body. Sometimes you do, but in this case we don't. So there's two different ways to do this. We can use our crop tool right here where we can pick it and we can take this up just like that. Take it over. And done. And now we have just the crop head, which when we go to cut this out, we can take the rest of this out by hand. So now, in this case, a human head is normally around 12 inches or so tall. Or in this case, let's make it a little bit bigger just to show. So now I'm going to go back into image size, click my resample button, and now I'm going to make my height 15 inches. This keeps it in proportion, so that means it's 12 inches wide. Now we'll zoom back out so we can see our finished product, and voila, this image is ready to print.